Well, let's talk to General Secretary of the SACP, Solly Mapaila, now, to take a look at fresh calls that they are making for an inquest into Hani's murder. They have also collected 20,000, looking for 30,000 signatures for a petition supporting the call. Good evening to you, Solly, and welcome to the program. I don't know if you had the opportunity to listen to the start of our program. We had a legal analyst on looking at the intricacies around an inquest and the institution of an inquest. It sounds as if it's quite a straightforward process. What is the biggest obstacle, would you say, to getting an inquest on the murder of Chris Hani?
Thank you very much, Iman. I didn't hear the legal expert, but simply the inquest process is not difficult to do. It just requires political will. And we've made this request through successive presidents and several ministers asking for this to be done. And we have had no joy. Even though we have access to them, we're able to play this matter on the table, but there's no political will to implement it. That is why we now are taking a legal course, firstly to garner the required petitions. And we're happy that people have been signing up, and we'll then take them all through to the relevant Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Development and Correctional Services. And thereafter, we'll take it from there. It unfortunately has to reach this level. It shouldn't have been, particularly given also what Comrade Chris was to this liberation struggle and to the people of this country. It should have been taken up as a matter of priority, even given the fact that over the years we've been fighting with the courts against the unrepentant criminals who were in jail after his assassination, who were refusing to tell the truth and keeping themselves in jail, and we've been blamed for that. That's why also we joined Austinpo in accepting the fact that we've been overly ostracized. The victims have been ostracized by anybody, even some of the people who are saying we're unforgiving people, and they're not talking to the assassins why they're not telling the truth. When institutions that deny them amnesty, for instance, the TRC, they didn't ask Bishop Tutu because the reasons were there. They didn't tell the truth. So it has to come to this level. It's unfortunate, but we'll have to do it this way.
We'll come back to the question of political will because it ties back to something very important in history. But my practical understanding of what our legal expert, Mpumelelo Zikalala, was telling us, Solly, is that you can actually go directly to court and you can point a finger at the SAPS, listening as we did today to Mamdimpo Hani say that there was a possibility and there's some evidence about a second shooter in her garden on that fateful morning.
Yes, some years ago we tried that because she did share with us that evidence before she shared it now in public, as part of the basis upon which we thought a new avenue could arise and this matter can be investigated differently. And it fell on deaf ears, but I think we will have to do it this way, but we will not disregard any other quicker possibility to do so.
I want to turn our attention to the 2018 publishing of that book, Incorruptible, which I'm sure that yourselves and others in the SACP who have an interest in the details and the facts, or at least the context around not only the murder of Mr. Chris Hani, but people like Dulcie September as well. And author Evelyn Kroning has articulated quite an interesting case around why, possibilities for why Mr. Hani was murdered. And these had to do with things like oil and diamond and casino rights. It had to do with things like nuclear and other or military secrets that, Chris Hani did not want shared with certain individuals. What can you tell us about the context that ties into this notion of a lack of political will in making sure that the true story around the death of Chris Hani is understood and known? Solly, are you there?
Well, look, I think, yes, I think the connection doesn't seem good. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, we have you now.
The bottom line is that we did read the book. In fact, quite important evidence coming out. That is why during that time, we then made a call for a full-blown inquest, not only on Comrade Chris, but many other revolutionaries and activists, pro-democracy activists who died, including September, Chris himself, as well as the CREDOC 4-5 team, so that they can also be included in this comprehensive process. And we have then joined other institutions that were fighting for these full-blown investigations onto those that the TRC had indicated that they required further investigation, but they had no time. But since then, this process has taken too long. But I did speak to the Minister of Justice the other day and was indicating to me that they have now budgeted for it, for all of those others, particularly, let's say, the CREDOC 4. And I also spoke to some of the legal team that we wanted them to look into this matter. They've indicated the engagement with various families. So we're looking forward to see that process rolling out. But there's generally evidence coming out through different investigation books and so forth that are coming out. We are also not collecting every other evidence that is available that can be utilized, particularly when the inquest is now open.
Just a final question, and Solly, and to paraphrase something that you said today, which I think warrants, some explanation on, which is warning the public against, or asking the public to boycott certain politically opportunistic individuals, who basically act with impunity in different things that they do. Why is it not out of place to just call a thing, as some people have said? Name the people. We're in a context in South Africa right now where specificity is so important, where when we have the identities of people who go against the national project of building our country and creating economic growth and jobs, changing our society, we need to know what's what. We need to know who's who. Why are you reticent about naming people that you say are standing in the way of public progress and who should be boycotted?
Well, Imam, you will know that we are not shy to name things the way they are, and we've, I think, always been doing that. All I was just indicating was the fact that we've been observing these realities across the board, including this disruption by corrupt corporates into the political space, and they're getting away with murder for that, and corrupted literally the political system in this country. For instance, we have had some of the municipalities unable to function for months and months because political parties are discussing coalitions that have no impact or meaningful impact on the living conditions of the people. Services are not being provided, and there are even meetings day in, day out. It's not just only to one political party per se, it's to the broad political spectrum. That's why the context in which we're raising. And when it comes to, if it's another debate altogether, we can deal with that. We are not afraid of any single political party to criticize as a Communist Party. And we have made very clear our intentions. Yeah. We'll keep it that way. So in this case, it was brought to, I was just talking basically to the political parties, all of them, including all political parties in government, for instance. We have indicated this even in the past.
Yeah, but
they've legislated collectively for business, not for the working class.
If I may, and in the interest of time, final thing is, first of all, the lack of political will is again, in the context of asking for an inquest, a question that you can raise to your alliance partners, the ANC. And this was actually, the criticism was very starkly directed to them by Ma'am Dimpo Hani today, as she has, traditionally done so every year on the commemoration. And why don't you lead by example? Boycott the ANC then. They themselves have said that corruption is eating them from the inside. This has been an issue that was raised at their Congress recently. They are part of the problem of corruption in this country. And if you're asking the public to boycott people who are politically corrupt, why don't you boycott the ANC?
But I think Austin responded to that question very well. This brushing the ANC, generally everyone in the ANC as corrupt, is completely unfortunate and it's incorrect. In fact, the ANC itself should take action against such kind of rhetoric because it's completely incorrect. Individuals, yes, who may be wearing the ANC colors, who may be representing the ANC colors, may be involved in corruption, and those must be dealt with decisively, and we have expressed ourselves in that regard. If you read the ANC policies, they are very clear with regard to fighting against corruption. We have also affirmed this posture that the ANC must never lose focus on dealing with corrupt elements, including criminal elements that have now are beginning to appropriate the ANC space and use it corruptly once they are affirmed in government. So I just feel that in the manner that the public discourse is pronounced, is completely unfortunate. It doesn't take away the fact that there are problems of corruption, but it's a huge diversion of the real corrupt guys, the financial sector in this country, for instance, the big monopolies that continues to control our economy when people are living in poverty, perpetual poverty, when they are sitting on the wealth of this country. They do not want to share. They are the greedy ones that must be dealt with. They are getting scot-free because their corruption is legislated. It's governed, it's accepted. It's actually what I call controlled corruption. So it's a corruption within the statutes, completely unacceptable. So that's why we're also saying the capitalist system in this country has to shoulder responsibility for the crisis that we face ourselves in. Government equally has to take responsibility for pursuing a macroeconomic policy framework that feeds profiteering by capitalist bosses rather than the interests of the people.
Solly, and just by way of transparency, I mean, that, characterization of the ANC is from the president of the party as well as the country. We must acknowledge that our movement, the ANC, has been and remains deeply implicated in South Africa's corruption problem. So these are not words and narratives that we're trying to project as you are proffering. This is what the party is dealing with on its own and in its own words. I would like to leave the interview. Yes?
No, but that was an extremely unfortunate statement from the president, completely incorrect. And I've expressed this to him because you can't brush the ANC in the same, to make a political statement. You condemn the entire movement. For instance, what has O.R. Tambo done in this case? Because when you talk about the ANC, we're talking about his legacy, his contributions, and many others. So point out the corrupt and deal with them. We have a political office where we control the state. If people are corrupt, let's deal with them. Let's not brush the African National Congress with the same brush as corrupt. That statement was incorrect. It doesn't mean that because it was said by the president is right.
All right. Solly Mapaila, thank you very much for your time this evening. We appreciate it. The SACP Secretary-General Solly Mapaila there.